Actually, I talked to a customer. Their daily workflow now is they have a Google Doc with the 5 questions that they ask every morning. They copy and paste it into here, look at the answer, make sure that one's okay, go to the next one, and it works. But that's not how humans should be using their brains, right? We should let computers worry about that. Just say it in language. It does exploratory analytics, bit of diagnostic analysis, of historical analysis. Now, when it reaches out to you, it comes in with all that context. It'll push you on Slack. This is watching out for your behalf and reaching out, trying to bring these things to your attention in a way that's useful to you. This is like a rich object in Slack. So it's not just a screenshot. Slack has a ton of context for what this actually is. Open up the canvas. It'll show us all these metrics. These numbers are live. Every time you load this page, get everybody on a call. You can look at this, talk through, drill into any issues. Go to this conversations tab. And this is everywhere that win rate is being discussed across all channels and DMs that I have access to. Pull all this stuff to give together and give you more of a 360 view. I can tell the agent I'm trying to increase my sales, so I want all my AEs and salespeople to reach out and set up an executive business review with their account. This is taking action, right? Bring these different topics or skills together into a single agent, ask some questions, figure out something interesting, and then do something about it. It takes 30 seconds. It's reaching out to you proactively. It starts to become really, really powerful and just fundamentally like a new paradigm for BI and analytics.
Hey everyone, before we get into the show, we want to announce something really exciting. We're kicking off 2 new completely free learning series, one on AI evaluation and one on Agentic analytics. If you head over to dataneighbor.com, you can see the full live schedule as well as get any of the past recordings and free practical resources. We've got a ton of really interesting workshop topics planned, from analyzing product data in Claude Code, to designing your first AI evaluation plan, to creating custom annotations tools, to validating the business impact of AI features, to cracking the data science interview leveraging AI tools. You'll find the full schedule and everything else at dataneighbor.com. And if you want to go even deeper, we're offering 2 cohort-based live hands-on courses. One's called AI Analytics for Builders, where you'll learn how to leverage AI to become your own product data scientist, become analytically independent, stop waiting on analysts and data scientists to answer your questions. And the other one is AI Evaluations for Product Development, where you can start to actually measure the tangible impact of your AI features on user outcomes to business outcomes. They're both super hands-on, practical, cohort-based courses. You're going to work with us as well as other AI practitioners in the field to learn week by week for 5 or 6 weeks. And at the end, you'll have a really strong understanding of either how to leverage AI to become an analyst or how to conduct the right analysis to evaluate AI features. So we hope you'll join us. Check it out at dataneighbor.com. Now back to the show. Welcome back to Data Neighbor with Sean, Shravi, and Hai. So today we're bringing you another episode of this new series we're kicking off, the Analyst New Toolbox. And in this series, we're talking with builders and leaders who are really reimagining how data gets analyzed and how companies are making decisions when AI is involved. Really excited for our special guest today. He's been leading in the field of AI and data and analytics for over a decade. Before his current role, he was a chief scientist at Narrative Science, a natural language company specializing in data storytelling. And today, he's vice president of product at Tableau, company everyone listening to knows and loves, I'm sure, in the data community, where he's driving Tableau's GenAI strategy. Nate Nichols, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Thanks, Hi. It's great to be here. Thanks for listening, folks.
Welcome, Nate.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. You've been thinking about AI and analytics and data like long before this current moment where all these kind of like agentic analytics platforms are coming to fruition. What originally drew you to this space?
Yeah. So I was real into computer science and majored in that in undergrad, but also did like English literature as a minor. Like that kind of the softer side, the language side was always important to me.
Okay.
And then I went to Northwestern for grad school and got my PhD there. My thesis was called Machine Generated Content. I really wish I had called it Generative AI because that would have paid off well now. But it would have been a good one to get my name on there. But it was all, it was pre-LLM, deep learning even. And this was 2005 to 2010. So it was traditional NLP techniques, and we were doing entity detection and topic classification. And we had a bunch of natural language templates that could say things. But that idea a lot of my work is around this thing called News at 7, which is this automatically generated news show. And the idea there was instead of like broadcasting news that was, trying to be sort of interesting enough to the biggest audience possible, now with AI and, even at the AI we had in 2007 or whatever, we can, if the machine creates the content, we can really make it super interesting for one person. And because the machine is doing the work, we can scale that to everybody. And so we can end up with these really personalized, really interesting things that you couldn't do before because there just wasn't the scale of AI. And so that was my grad school work. And then I was actually going to be a professor at the journalism school there because my news project
Medill?
was sort of, yeah, Medill?
Yeah, my wife went there for grad school.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Nice.
Fantastic journalism school. And this is what
That's
they were
cool.
trying to, the fear then was like internet's going to put journalists out of business and everything was getting disrupted 2010, 2011. So they were trying to hire like technologists. And so I spent
Okay.
a bunch of time trying to do that. But in the meantime, this company, Narrative Science, got spun out of like the office next door. And I went there and I was going to work there for the summer and then be like a real professor and do that whole thing. And I was there for 2 weeks and I was like, oh my God, this is just way more fun. And I remember this is in Evanston, Illinois, Sean, our office was above the Potbellies. And I just had this image of sitting at the Medill office late at night, grading like a 19-year-old's, HTML project and seeing the Narrative Science rocket ship take off without me on it. And, it's this kind of like FOMO thing. It's like, I got to be there and do that. And so I went back to Medill and had to tell the dean that I was unaccepting the generous offer to be a faculty there.
No.
Yeah, it was kind of awkward. I spent 6 months trying to get that job. And then right at the end, I was like, actually, I'm not going to take it. So then I went to work at Narrative Science. And I was like employee number 7 or something, doing a lot of originally I was coding a lot, then moved into architecture and chief scientist role. But the idea there was just, how can we help people understand what's going on in the world by putting language on top of the data?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that was very bespoke at the beginning. We did, one of our big clients was a Little League game recap thing where parents would hit, which kids got home runs and which kids swung out. And then we would write a nice story at the end of like, these 7-year-olds play these other 7-year-olds, but the story sounded awesome. It was like the little sluggers came from behind off a 3-run homer and did this thing. And it was really cool. And again, like
Nice.
the audience for those stories was a dozen people, but it was a dozen people reading about their kids and themselves and their grandkids. And like that kind of model really resonated. And then we moved into doing more general analytics and we had like an extension of Tableau. And that was when we really started, moving directly into this BI analytics space and putting natural language insights, we called them at the time, on top of that. And so that was a really fun ride to be on. And then we got acquired by Tableau/Salesforce almost exactly 4 years ago now, right at the end of 2021.
Okay.
And it was sort of when the acquisition started to come through, I was like involved with, some of the talks and stuff. And I was nervous about it at the beginning because a lot of our selling motion was, don't use Tableau. They don't get it. They're just selling dashboards. Dashboards don't work. You need natural language things.
Man.
And so we had this cool mobile app and we were like kind of trying to beat up on Tableau as like the old way of doing BI. And then we got here and I was like, and then we got here and everybody wanted the same thing we were doing, right? It was like all about dashboards. They're not dead. They're not going away, whatever. They serve a real role, but they're not the best we can do anymore. And if we really try to focus on what the goal of analytics is, which is to make better decisions faster, not to learn factoids, it's to, increase outcomes for the business. And if we focus on that, there's a lot of new things we can do beyond just, the traditional BI dashboards. And so it was awesome to come in and like join the team that was already pushing that same direction and, kind of add fuel to that fire. And then we've been following, GPT-2 and GPT-3 and then ChatGPT dropped and it was like, oh my God, this is again, just kind of really raises the ceiling of capabilities we can do. And so now it's been a super fun journey over the past few years, like trying to figure out how to bring all those new capabilities in that customers want and they're using in their personal lives and we want them to have, while also, we're Tableau, trust is their number one value. We can't compromise on that. We don't want to like vibe you up some numbers. You're running your business on us. And like, we take that super seriously and trying to like marry those worlds and work through that tension is a lot of my day job now. And it's a super fun problem to be working on.
It sounds like, it's pretty cool. Like it sounds like when you joined, you had the realization of you're actually pretty aligned and like you said, rowing in the same direction already. But I do imagine like joining one of like the world's largest like BI platforms probably gave you a little bit of a different vantage point. Is there anything like, did your perspective on how people use data or like patterns that you hadn't really seen before shift at all when you came into Tableau?
Yeah. I was very When I joined 42 now. I joined at like upper 40s or something. But I still had looking back on it now, I had a very like naive kind of young person view about how data actually works in the world. Cause we were a startup. Most of our customers, we had a couple like, blue chip, legit enterprise customers, but a lot of them were also kind of other startups trying new things. And I didn't appreciate like how much of the world runs on Tableau and how much of the world runs on these reports that like lots of times we pick on them and it's like, you run your business on that thing or you run your business on Excel or whatever. And it's like, yes, that is very real for people. And looking back, I was like way too cocky and sort of like, hey, we're going to come in with some cool new AI hotness. You can throw away all the old stuff. And it's like, that old stuff is running billion-dollar businesses across the globe, right? And like coming in and just chucking that out and how many, and so that actually having real customers for the first time and getting out of the startup world and like, no, this is like a core part of people's stack and the way they run their business. It was definitely humbling and it sort of it kind of recentered us on like, yes, there is a bunch of new AI stuff that's great, but the idea of like pitching it's hard to kind of come in and pitch some crazy new vision of, agentic AI is going to run everything. And people are like, we're on Excel. What is the path there? And what can we
Yeah.
do meantime? And how do we get ourselves ready for that? And that kind of change management and all of that stuff I definitely underappreciated. I underappreciated that. And I also underappreciated like the data fam and just how much people love Tableau and have built their careers on it and are really good at it and way better than I am, and a lot of other people on the team. It's like you go to Iron Viz and some of these things and it's amazing what people
Yeah.
can do. And so it's that kind of legacy and honoring that while also bringing it forward. And it's not about who can build the most beautiful visualization anymore, right? We can do different things than that and trying to respect and honor the work and the value that it's provided while also opening up into this new world and bringing customers along with that. It was definitely a bit, say, maturation experience for me joining Tableau.
Yeah, the people running their business on their reports is definitely a very real pain to be felt anytime something changes, even within a tool, not even like moving from a tool to tool. It's like suddenly, as the data person, you're just like pinged by all these very important people of like, why the heck is this? I went to a customer with this and put the number in front of them and they think I'm crazy. I was like, oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. That the pressure that a lot of analysts, like you just mentioned, the very important people, like analysts are so often kind of like like the axle of around which the business is spinning and they're getting hit by every direction. And that's like another thing that's like hard to, like we're serving them so they can serve the CEO and they feel the pressure of that. And their CEOs has them on text and is happy to text them at 9 o'clock at night and ask them for a number or ask them why the dashboard is down or what's going on. And like, that's just a lot of pressure for people. And that, again, we like need to respect and take that seriously for folks.
I really like the perspective that you gave, which is, like I run a side business as well. And even though I'm a data professional, the visualization I have is terrible. It's like, it looks horrible, but it serves my purpose. And I got used to it. And so it's one of those things where it's like, even if you make it prettier, like I'm going to have like a sticker shock of like, how do I get this number again? Like a moment of panic. And so there's certainly a lot of elements like that here where like love that you are, like you bring in a perspective that, like we don't change things for the sake of changing things. People are relying on us to do a lot of the stuff that they're familiar with. And at points of pressure, like familiarity wins almost every single time.
Yeah, totally. Then that was a big lesson we had to learn at narrative science where we had this thing called Lexio, which was like all natural language insights about your data. And originally we wanted that to be like super dynamic. Like every time you opened it, it would put the most interesting, impactful, whatever changes at the top. It was supposed to kind of feel like a social news feed where it's like, it's a stream of interesting things going by and the best thing is always at the top. And then a lot of what we heard was like, I want the number I need to be at the top to always be at the top. And like being able to open my phone and know exactly where to look to see exactly that number is like, it's real for people. And some of it is kind of psychological comfort and some of it is real. I'm in the thick of it making decisions and things need to be where I expect them. And like trying to find that kind of balance of dynamism versus staticness or whatever the adjective form of static is. It's an interesting challenge. And there's like, pros and cons on both sides, obviously.
So we talked a little bit about like when you into Tableau and you kind of got a little bit of a different kind of vantage point and found like the importance of all these things that are really important for people's like day to day their work. I mean, you mentioned like even like people building their careers off Tableau. Yeah, I guess like, I built my career off Tableau, like for sure. My first couple of years, I was working for PwC in consulting, and my job was just like doing these large scale data visualizations on this like 8 foot by 16 foot screen that we
Yeah,
called
yeah.
like the analytics wall. And yeah, it was pretty cool actually. I'd like be doing everything like on my computer, and then I'd like go into this one room and be like the only person in this conference room, and then I'd like connect it up to the hardware there, and then try and like change everything to these other
Oh
aspect
man.
ratios and stuff. And it was like touch screen too, so you could like it was pretty cool. It was like but that was like my introduction to it, and I think it definitely got me thinking a lot about like how you can like the whole purpose of that was like to tell a story as you like walk down this
Oh,
wall.
nice. Yeah, yeah.
So it's really interesting, but that's a little tangential. What I kind of wanted to get to is like with this new vantage point and you're in Tableau, like what have you kind of seen where it's like, hey, these with the way people are working with data, like these things are working really well. Some of these things are kind of like solve problems versus like here's like some friction points that like you and like the folks at Tableau are trying to solve.
Yeah, yeah. I think I love those big analytics walls, by the way. I always mess with them when I get a chance to. Yeah, yeah. I think like I think it's useful to think of analytics like kind of as a pipeline or like almost like a sales funnel where there's like raw data that comes in and then needs to get, transformed or cleaned up in various ways and processed, and you can do ML on top of it or whatever you're doing. And then it comes through and then you can visualize it or do something with it. And then like to actually get money out of this funnel, there's, traditionally there's been like a visualization. Somebody has to look at that visualization. They have to figure out what to do. They have to learn something. They have to figure out what they do with something they learned, and then they have to go do it. And then at the very end, like that's where money comes out. And you pay, customers pay in each one of these. You pay to hold the data, you pay to process it, you pay to visualize it, all of those, you hire people for it, you pay, a cloud provider, whatever that is. And at the very end, like, a better decision comes out or a decision's made faster. Like that's the only part that produces money. And it can be a very lossy funnel. And in particular, those last couple of stages of like, it's in a dashboard to now a better decision is made from it is like, there is a low conversion rate on that part historically.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys know this kind of like 30% number, 30% roughly of like of an organization is looking at data on a regular basis. It's kind of the ceiling that's always been there. And I think up until that point, we've made a ton of progress. Like when Tableau, we were talking about early days of Tableau, like you had to sell people on your data is useful for stuff. You should hold on to it and store it in a useful schema. And that was like, oh, okay. And that was kind of new at the time where, we had to coach people on that and sell on that, but everybody gets that now. Snowflake, Redshift and Databricks, all those folks are doing great. So like there's a lot, and AI is helping on those things in various ways. We're doing stuff, other people are doing stuff. And so that kind of pipeline is definitely the best it's ever been, and I think is now sort of not the biggest problem to fix there. We've got the data in a good state, and now it needs to get into somebody's head, and they need to do something with it. That's the really leaky part of the funnel, and so that's where we're putting a lot of our effort is how do we get it from just it exists, a useful information exists in a database somewhere to that is driving real action in the world. That's where, we're doing what AI is helping in all those things, but in particular, that part, that is definitely the kind of lowest conversion rate, between like stages of the funnel. And it's kind of tricky because that's not really the data team's job historically. Like a lot of analytics organizations, like we build the dashboards the business asked for. That's our role, right? We're done. If they ask for a dashboard, we deliver it on time, done and dusted. That is now like, that's not working as well anymore because the overall company is saying, but we're not getting as much value out of this. And the data teams are saying, well, we got it in the dashboard that you asked for. I don't know what the problem is. And so part of thinking and talking with customers about is some of it is like the business users need to be asking for more. Like if dashboards aren't working for them, we've tried yelling at them to look at the dashboards more often. We've tried like, making them promise that they were going to do it or having weekly check-ins or whatever. And it's like, what we've realized is just that step is kind of broken. Dumping it into a dashboard it was the best we could do. It was never like what we wanted to do necessarily. It's just computers for a long time have been good at, drawing line charts and doing bar charts, and they can do that math quickly. And that was like the best we could do. And after that, you just kind of pray that they did something with it. And when we're trying to work with data teams now and the customers, having success with this is if you take kind of a little more of an elevated position on that, it's the analytics team's role is to drive outcomes from the data, from the analysis. And there are better ways to do that now. Some of that needs to be kind of, asked for by the business teams who need to want more than just another dashboard that they're not going to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we need to do our part, and customers need to do their part of what can we give them that's better. For us, it's a lot of we can tell you things where you're working already. We can explain it in language. We can put recommended actions with it. We can reach out to you proactively, so you don't need to come in and click on the dashboard. There's a lot of ways to solve that now that AI has been the big unlock there. But yeah, it's really that kind of later stages of the funnel that we think we can get the most lift from AI.
That is so interesting. Do you, Nate, I'm curious, do you have a metric for, I guess, driving outcome that you guys measure?
No, we would love that. We're moving towards it. So obviously there's a big move towards consumption pricing. In general, there's a lot of things with agents where they want to, I heard an interview with, I forget, some agentic company that's doing customer service stuff. And they're like, we bill for every time one of your agents doesn't have to pick up the phone and AI handles the whole thing. That's when we charge you.
Okay.
It's not, and it's that's a nice outcome for that. It's like
Pure
we
user
all really,
value.
yeah. And we would love to do that for analytics. And we have, particularly as we, have been moving closer to Salesforce, a lot of the actions we can recommend are things that happen in Salesforce, which means we can also track the outcome of that. So it's not just, we recommend you shift allocation away from this marketing campaign, but we recommend that you guys click the button that said, accept that action. And then we come back 30 days later and your click-through rate has improved. Therefore, somehow we want to get credit for that and kind of track that or charge based on that or something. And we haven't figured out what that metric is. It's just so murky. And some of the things, you'll learn something new and not do anything with it for 6 months. And then that'll be the big insight. And how do we kind of track that? But yeah, that's I don't know if this is official Tableau position. It's definitely my position. I would love that to be I would love for us to kind of track outcomes. And that's the thing we're ultimately solving for, not dashboard views or number of insights delivered or these kind of vanity metrics that don't necessarily move the needle.
Yeah, I'm sure every exec of every company and every data leader within every company who's trying to get more headcount would both love those numbers to be hey, my team is providing this much direct value to the business, but it is it's very kind of murky. How do we, I don't know, sometimes it's just trust me, we're making better decisions if we can't really run an experiment of not doing it and doing it because it's just pure loss then. But it's interesting. I totally agree with that. Part of the funnel, the last mile is such a hard part to crack thing, not only with tools but with people in terms of developing data professionals. That's just something that took me a while to learn in my career too, all this work, that's most of the work I'm doing does not matter if at the end of the day, I do my presentation to the director of product or whatever, and they're that's cool, and then nothing happens. It's just just a complete waste of months of time, and I'm getting paid for it, whatever. It's rough on the company.
Yeah, the
it's
satisfaction is there. Yeah. The analysts I talk to, especially the good ones, I'm sure you both are, that it's not just, it's not just a paycheck, and it's not just, I love making things look nice in Tableau. They want to help the business, right? They want to actually have an impact. And that's where a lot of the satisfaction comes from. And so, yeah, getting to that, and some of it feels kind of like product management kind of things where it's not any fun to build products for users you don't have. It's not any fun to build something that somebody says they're dying for, and then you build it and then they don't use it. It's a really disheartening experience. But I think a lot of analysts feel it on a regular basis.
Yeah, you kind of started listing off a few things, but what do you feel kind of becomes possible with generative AI now? Or it doesn't have to be generative AI; it could be anything in terms of kind of solving that last step in the funnel.
Yeah, I think there's there's a couple things. One of the things we've been doing is moving. So obviously, Tableau came out and we were, kind of introduced this visual exploratory analytics paradigm and a lot of the dashboarding capabilities. And those tend to be like kind of one size fits all. It's like, hey, here's the dashboard, and if I come into it and I own the East Coast and you come into it and you own the West Coast, we have to go in and like fiddle with that to make it right. And then I want one more breakdown, and so I get an analyst to add it. And now you have to see that breakdown every time, even though you didn't care about it. And one of the things we've been doing for a few years now is just moving the semantics like into some real semantic layer, and out of like we don't want the abstractions, the representations of the data in a dashboard, because that is like the final artifact, and it's kind of siloed there, right? And so like we introduced this idea of metrics. Other companies have like KPIs, kind of DBT has metrics, like it's an emerging kind of thing. And those are really nice because they're just all semantics. It's just, how do you define this number? What dimensions can you break it down by? What time granularities make sense? What types of analysis make sense? And like, you just kind of define that once, and then every user can slice and dice it their own way. They can say, I care about this, and the system can monitor it on their behalf in a way that's like hard to monitor a dashboard. But that kind of starting to pull the semantics out of the periphery of dashboards and bring that together opens up a lot more like personalization, and making sure that the things are actually, the system knows what's important to me. The things I see are knobs that I can influence, and the numbers that like actually matter to me. That's a big piece of it. Basically self-service analytics, like people can ask questions and get an answer, and you don't have to go bug an analyst or find the right dashboard or find your login or whatever. That's huge. And I think I'll say there are three, just for podcast conversation's sake, I'll say there's three. The third one is also like, and this is kind of a little more forward looking, but like, how do we make sure all the agents that are going to be increasingly doing work are seeing the same numbers, seeing the same insights, going through the same security and governance and data models that the humans are? Because that kind of collaboration, there's going to be more and more of that. And it's not going to work if the agent is generating queries against Snowflake and you're looking at data that's on some extract, and it's just like the numbers don't line up, and that's like chaos. It's not going to work at all. And so making sure that both, like when someone comes in with an analytics question, they can ask it, they get an answer back they trust, it shows the reasoning, all that good stuff. But also when you've just got an agent that's working 24/7 to optimize your marketing spend, or is picking up the phone when a customer calls in and it wants to know what product to recommend to them, that should be the same list of products that a human would see in a dashboard. And making sure that the humans and the agents are singing from the same songbook is also, has become unlocked, and I think will become really important over the next few years as there's more and more agents working together with us.
Yeah, it's a really good point around like, I feel like anyone leveraging AI in a product right now, like doesn't have to be even a data product, but definitely these two. There's just like this whole higher level of skepticism around like, do I trust this? Like already pre any AI kind of stuff, if I'm making a dashboard and there's still some people who are like, all right, I'm gonna double check all Sean's numbers. And then if I've screwed up a few times in the past with them, they're like, I'm not even gonna look at his thing. Like this isn't gonna be right. And then, but now it's like, there's this, it's not a person. Like they've seen it. They've seen people will try it out, and then like it's progressing so quickly over the past few years that like people may try it and like it sucked, and then like a couple months later it could be way better. How and you mentioned like trust is really important and singing from the same songbook. Do you kind of like surface that information to the user in some way in Tableau?
Yeah. Before I get to that, I just want to totally agree with you. Maybe a little. What I've found is there are some customers who don't trust it and have sort of AI anxiety, or just kind of a default kind of mistrust about what it's doing. And there are some customers that are just, or some users at least, that are just happy to go with it. And I think they are now, and then they're going to get burnt. Like it can feel like a very binary thing. Like I've talked with users who it's like, I take my Tableau dashboard and I take a screenshot and I throw it in Gemini and it tells me all kinds of stuff. And it's like, whoa, dude, like, is any of that stuff right? And it's like, and there's a big like confirmation bias where it tells me all kinds of stuff that I should do the decision I wanted to do. Like, I love this thing, and it's like, oh, let's do that. And so there's this kind of feels very like bifurcated, where some people are like deep skepticism, and I think kind of overly skeptical in some places. And then some people are overly credulous and are just happy to do it. And especially for the analysts, a lot of them feel kind of caught in the middle, where it's like some executive will have some mind-blowing conversation with ChatGPT and be like, I just want this on all my data. And then they go to the analyst and say, do it, and the analysts are like, when this comes back with the wrong number, it's my job on the line. It's
Yeah.
not ChatGPT
Yeah.
ain't going to get fired. It's me, and like, it's a lot of pressure to do it and a lot of anxiety about doing it. And so to circle around to Tableau, yes, like we are doing a bunch of stuff around that. Some of it, there's kind of two ways we're thinking about it. One is like, what do we do when a business user asks a question? And some of that is we try to be really sure about what they're asking. So like we clarify the question. If you say like, who's my best salesperson? It's like, what do you mean by best? And like ChatGPT, or if not to pick on them specifically, but like those in general, LLMs really want to answer your question, right? They're like dying to be useful in any way they can. So they'll just pick something for best and then tell you that. And it's like, maybe, but if I come back tomorrow, will it be the same? Will it give me a different answer? Because now it's number of deals instead of total deals, total value of deals or whatever. So there's a lot of ambiguity there. So we work to shake that out before we answer the question. When we answer the question, we show you the reasoning steps it went through. We show you the data model it used. We're building out more workflows so you can like run this by an analyst, and it would go sort of a workflow system. And then an analyst opens that up and says, I told Nate this number and he wanted me to double check you to double check it. Can you do that? And then it flows back through. There's stuff we're doing like when a user actually comes in trying to, self-serve and get some insights. There's also a lot we're doing for the analyst too, because a lot of them, it's like, there's pressure to turn this AI thing on. And then it's like, what is it doing out in the world? How much is it costing us? Is it giving good answers? Who is it telling what? Is there somebody asking 1,000 questions a day? There's this like kind of monitoring it, some of it just from a LLM usage, but also like analytics particularly, there's a lot of opacity in some cases. And so we're doing a bunch of stuff. We have one thing called the testing center where it's like you build a data model and it will say, here's 20 questions somebody could ask about this data model. Here's how I would answer them.
That's cool.
Are these right? And if they're right, you say, yep. And then it holds on to that and it stores that plan. And next time a user comes in, it doesn't need to rethink how to answer that question. It can just rerun that plan. Works great. If you give it if it comes back with a wrong answer, or it should have been a line chart and it was a bar chart, or it should have been sorted differently, whatever that is, the analyst can give feedback right there. And that helps it when answering that question next time. We push that into the prompt and it does a better job with it. We give people a score on like how ready your data is for AI. And so like, if you upload a CSV and it's got 1,000 column names that are each 2 characters, it's like, don't turn this on for anybody.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And it gives you recommendations on how to fix it, and like, give us better column names, come through and define some calculations. You got a ton of nulls in this column. Like, what do you want to do with them? We're trying to make sure that it's really important that analysts feel comfortable turning this on, because it's doing some of the stuff they used to do in a good way, that you won't get slacked anymore at 10 o'clock at night because now this thing can answer it for you.
Yeah.
But it's also a lot of kind of trust you have to put in it. And so we want to make sure that we can give people the context they need to, to trust what it's going to do on their behalf.
Yeah. It's so cool that like you guys are creating like the kind of internal kind of evaluation toolkit there, but especially the score, like you mentioned, this like there's so like the question is like the uncertainty around what it's doing. Even I don't know, even if it's like, hey, you're at 60%, it'd be like, okay, I just want to know I'm at 60%, so I can tell someone that like 60% of the time is probably okay, but you're gonna get some failures, but we can turn it on. Versus like someone just turning it on and being like, I'm not sure. And people assuming that's going to be 100% of the time. Because then it's just like anything else with like using GenAI. Like when I'm prompting stuff or working with stuff, I know like I'm not going to get my first response I want the first time I chat with it. It's going to be iterative process. Like if you're doing any of the coding tool stuff too. And when you have that expectation, it's fine. But if you come in with like, I want a one shot, then it's very different.
Yeah. And some of that varies by persona too, where it's like, this data set isn't great, but if it's an analyst asking questions, it can still be really useful. But don't let your board of directors start asking questions of this. Like, and sort of thinking about like who can take on more of that risk and who can't, and making sure that you're giving the right people the right access is part of it.
So much of kind of like the gradual adoption of AI is in rolling it out strategically, like you said, like just making sure that you don't kind of blow your trust in one shot, because you probably only get one shot, and then just making sure to do it in a way that is reasonable, sensible, and then I guess you're facilitating a process for which like people don't have to even like reinvent the wheel. That's really cool.
Yeah, and we had that just sort of like our arc of doing Gen AI stuff for the past 3.5 years or something. Like the first thing we released with Gen AI features is this thing called Tableau Pulse, and the idea was it's all based on metrics. So you define some metrics, and then you get it works great on mobile. You got a nice web experience, all this good stuff. But there's like natural language insights are a big part of that, and it'll tell you about streaks and trends and outliers and peer-to-peer comparisons, all this stuff. And that's all like that's deterministic. We have data scientists that wrote trend detection algorithms, and we can share those with customers. And
Nice.
when it says it's up 4%, like it is. And that's evaluated using the same code path that Tableau's always used. And like that's going to be right. The language is going to be right. And then we do a nice summary, and that's like Gen AI, but it's like text to text translation. It's here's the 3 most interesting insights, put those together in a sentence and make it sound nice. And like Gen AI has been good at that for a long time. It's like a very clean thing. And we have Q&A features on Pulse. And the idea there is you can ask questions, but the answers are always going to be grounded in those insights. Like we're not generating SQL. We're not in Pulse. We're not generating SQL. We're not generating Python. We are running a bunch of insights that are accurate and produce true facts. And then basically the LLM is here's a bunch of true facts. Here's the user's question. Answer the question as best you can using these true facts and don't make anything up. And that works great. And like, so it means there are questions that it can't answer. And that's like the trade-off there. But when it does answer, it can answer a ton. And when it does, like, those are like rock solid numbers and we can cite it. And like, and that's what we released in February 2021 or something. And like,
Okay.
for a lot of our customers, that was like the first Gen AI thing that got through security review and legal review. Like it was pretty early and quick. And part of that was because like how thoughtful and conservative we were being. And that's what, GPT 3.5 could do a good job of at the time. And now we're doing SQL Gen, now we're doing Python Gen. We can answer more questions, but that's sort of, to me, that's kind of emblematic of like how the kind of the trust envelope and the capability envelope has kept developing with AI. But it's nice. A lot of customers, especially in regulated industries, are like real antsy about this stuff. And it's nice to be like, use Pulse. It's going to be right. Like you can put this in front of anybody and it will not go wrong. And that's like, oh my God, like that's a weight off people's shoulders sometimes.
If you're up for it, I think it'd be a good moment to maybe do a little demo of how AI is showing up in Tableau based on some of the stuff you're talking about. It'd be awesome to take.
So this is Tableau Next, which is the version of Tableau that's running right on the Salesforce platform. So this is really great, particularly for customers that are already in the Salesforce ecosystem, because it's running natively where everything else in Salesforce is running.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so it works. You can embed this anywhere. This is like a more traditional dashboard, but it's really easy to take any of these pieces and just embed them anywhere in Salesforce or third-party apps and all that good stuff. But what we've got here is this is kind of a general sales dashboard on the left, and this is kind of that one-size-fits-all model, and everybody sees the same thing, and you can filter, and things are where you expect them to be, like we were talking about earlier. But on the right, these are the metrics that I follow. And these are specific just to me. And I can click through here. I can open up one of these. This is very spiky demo data right here. But this is, win rate or pipeline generation. And these are just the metric. Like this is my space. I choose what to follow here. And it's not just here, it's all pipe gen, but I could just be following pipe gen for my particular region or my particular product line or whatever that is. So like some of the things we were talking about earlier, if I open this up and I can ask a question, so in this demo, I'm a sales manager trying to hit my number by the end of the quarter. And I can ask what the lowest performing product families are. And this is a very, a natural question. I didn't have to phrase it like a database query or anything. What's going on under the hood here is, first, the thing that's important is this is running on Agentforce, which is Salesforce's digital labor platform. So I'll show this in a second, but it's nice because what we've done at Tableau is have these, they're called skills in Agentforce kind of vernacular, but this is like basically the ability to answer an analytics question. And here we're exposing it. It has the context from the page, so it knows it's on a dashboard, but this could be put with any other agent. And so if you have sales agents or marketing agents or service agents, all of them can be using the same skill and, like we were talking about earlier, be driven by the same insight, seeing the same numbers.
Right.
So it's really easy to kind of mix and match these verbs. And here, this is that clarification flow I was mentioning. What's the lowest performing product families? And it's like, hey, what are you talking about by lowest
Yeah.
performing? And it comes up with
That's
some
cool.
useful suggestions from the data. So I'll
That's
say,
like such a conversation you would have like as a analyst with someone too, that like it's so easy to talk past each other too, where it's like I gave it's like I thought
yeah,
you were
yeah,
talking about even like things that are like pure metrics where it's like what's my net revenue or something. And it's like, oh, I don't count these things. It's like that's pretty cool.
yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting as we talk about, with Pulse, we started talking about metrics layer. You saw these metrics and semantics layer, like a lot of the as we talk to customers about it, a lot of the work that goes into building those out, like some of it is somebody's actually got to go in the UX and click around. A lot of it is like, we got to get the org aligned around how we calculate net revenue. And is this, are we including VAT taxes in here or not? Or is it like when the
Mhm.
deal closes or when we first deliver services? And it ends up forcing a lot of useful conversations sometimes.
Nice.
But here, this comes back, and talking about solar panel hardware. This is like a kind of a green energy sales example. This is the lowest one. And you can ask more questions here. And to the sources, like this is what's going on here, and like this is what it's did. And we're trying to explain this in natural language, so it's not. We don't want to show like we know the SQL query that was generated, but in general, that's not what a business user, a sales leader, somebody wants to see. So we're trying to explain this in natural language. You see things like fiscal calendar getting used, but I also like they excluded smart home as per your preferences. So for whatever reason in
Mm,
this organization, they don't want to include smart homes in these breakdowns. And so this was some of the additional context they gave the agent. Maybe this is a discontinued product or something. And the analyst this is something, on the real team, all the analysts would know, like, we're not doing smart home anymore. We should just forget about that, pull it out of the data. But there hasn't been like a place to get that into the AI's head. It's like people on the team know it, but how do you get that into a way that the AI can understand or the agent can understand? And we have ways to do that now. And so this is like an example of it. And it tries to make sure it mentions what it's doing so that people have the context if somebody is surprised, smart home didn't show up or something. And this is cool. And this is like we call this concierge, but it's this kind of ad hoc reactive Q&A experience.
yeah.
One thing I talked to a customer, they're using Tableau Next. They really loved it. It's great. But they have part of their daily workflow now is they have a Google Doc with the 5 questions that they ask every morning. And
Okay.
they open it up, these are the 5 KPIs they're going to be evaluated on at the end of the quarter. They copy and paste it into here, look at the answer, make sure that one's okay, go to the next one. And it works. It's kind of the Excel sheet of analytics things. But that's not it. That's not how humans should be using their brains, right? We should let
Uh-huh.
computers worry about that. And so another thing we're working on is this more proactive piece. And we see what it's doing
Yes.
here is, it's sort of data alerts have obviously been around for a really long time. I'm sure you get emails. I get emails every day about various data alerts that just get silently filtered out of my inbox. But what we can do here is a couple differences. One is setting it up is very natural. Like I didn't have to go into create a new data alert screen and specify a threshold and choose my comparator and all this stuff. You just say it in language.
Yeah.
And then when it reaches out to you, it's not just, solar panel hardware dropped by 4%, end of message. The system is essentially watching this, querying it periodically. It recognizes the alert condition has been met. And then it does like a little exploratory analytics around it and says, okay, this dropped by 4%. Has this been dropping steadily or has this been increasing and all of a sudden it fell off last week? Or is it dropping because solar panel hardware in California fell by 50% but everywhere else is doing well? It does some of that kind of,
Wow.
a little bit of diagnostic analysis, a little bit of historical analysis. And then when it reaches out to you, it comes in with all that context. And so it says, hey, solar panel hardware is down. It's been decreasing for a while, but there was a super sharp drop off in California. And so it fell by 4% last week. And what we're getting to is here's what you might want to do about it. But even with just that first part, like now you're in a conversation with kind of a virtual
Yeah.
analyst. It's not a email somewhere. It's the thing essentially text messages you and it'll push you things on Slack. It'll push you through the Salesforce app. But the idea is like we wanted to bring it to you as like an opportunity, not as an email to ignore or some kind
Yeah.
of thing that's just bad news that you get, kind of pinged by randomly. It's like, no, this is watching out for your behalf and reaching out, and it's kind of your buddy, and it's trying to bring these things to your attention in a way that's useful to you.
That's so cool. Me and I a few weeks ago, we were talking and I was like, hey, hi, what do you think AI for analytics will be in the long term, like 4 or 5
Okay.
years. And we were talking about this kind of thing, like proactive.
Yeah.
The AI is looking for
Yeah.
this stuff, and it's also identifying what's going on, and then messaging is like, oh, okay, Tableau's already doing it, so
Yeah.
and we have to reimagine our answer to that one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a journey, and then this, the thing I'm showing right now is in beta, or that inspector piece is in beta and stuff. So it's still coming, but we're really excited about it, and customers are too. And there's a lot of excitement in this space, and so we've got a work cut out for us as well. I want to just show you one more thing if we have time here.
Yeah.
So I can share this win rate data is kind of weird, but if I can share this to Slack and or sales team. Is there a team? Oh, sales leads. So obviously Slack is part of Salesforce. We've got a great Slack integration. We're doing a great Teams integration as well. That'll be coming out early first half of 2026.
Nice. Oh,
So
nice.
I shared this to Slack, and did I share it to Slack? Oh, I shared it to sales leads. Let me see if
Sales leads.
there we
Yeah.
go. Thanks. There we go. Let's fix this. Here we are. And so this is nice because this is like a rich object in Slack. So it's not just a screenshot of the visualization. Slack has like a ton of context for what this actually is.
Uh-huh.
You can pin this. I don't know if so if we open up like the canvas here in Slack, it'll show us all these metrics. These are all live. And so a lot of us internally are using this kind of canvas as like the team walk up on Monday. Like these numbers are live. Every time you load this page, they're the
Yeah.
most recent value. But also on Monday morning, you get everybody on a call. You can look at this, talk through, kind of drill into any issues. And from here, if you open this up, you can go to this conversations tab. And this is everywhere that win rate is being discussed across all channels and DMs that I have access to. So it's always in my context. We're not seeing stuff we shouldn't see, obviously. But it's really nice lots of times there'll be some kind of, fire alarm or fire drill going on, and it's getting handled in a lot of different places, but the coordination across that isn't there. Or you don't know that one team is working on fixing the same thing or has already figured out it's a false alarm or whatever. So here this is all a demo org. So there's a lot of repetition in here, but that's the idea is we can pull all of this stuff to give together and give you more of a 360 view. And you can also ask questions directly about it in Slack. And right
Nice.
now you have to do this from some kind of like analytic artifact. So we know what data model to use, and we use that to ground the agent. That'll improve again next year where we're doing Ask Me Anything. And the idea there is you can just DM the analytics and visualization agent with any question, and it will first find the right data source to use to answer that, and then go through the flow we already support. Again, you can see this working. And then the thing that I think is the coolest is if I can tell the agent to do this. I'm trying to increase my sales, so I want all my AEs and salespeople to reach out and set up an executive business review with their account. And this has like nothing to do with analytics, but this is
Uh-huh.
taking action, right? This is not, and the
Yeah.
really cool part about Tableau being part of Salesforce is like, we didn't have to build this. And this one, I think Sales Cloud built it. Customers can build this as well. It's really easy, or third parties or whoever can build these things. And you can bring these different topics or skills together into a single agent. And now you can go, within Slack and within the course of one conversation, ask some questions, figure out something interesting, and then do something about it. It takes 30 seconds or something instead of trying to create a to-do list or start, switching, what's that, chair switching or desk switching or whatever, where you're switching from one app to another.
Uh-huh.
You can just stay in that context and actually do something with it. And like, at this point, we're all the way through the pipeline. And action has been taken. These business reviews, ideally, we actually could track whether these business reviews are effective and say, creating these higher priority tasks drove a 14% increase in close rate or whatever. We're not quite there yet, but at least we can support that entire analytics pipeline of data comes in and action goes out the other end. We can do that all within a collaboration tool and all within the course of a single conversation with a single agent. And I think that's that kind of idea and then you bring in like those inspector alerts that I was showing where it's reaching out to you proactively. It starts to become really, really powerful and just fundamentally like a new paradigm for BI and analytics.
Yeah, it's very clear to me how this like directly addresses that drop off in the pipeline of like that last mile of getting impact and action out of it, like the proactiveness, the diagnostics behind the proactiveness, surfacing it in one place so you don't have to switch around, obviously. And then also that grouping of conversation, like you're clearly like bringing people, like, here's all the people who care about this clearly and like who you need to talk to. Because that's part of it too. Sometimes it's just like, I just don't even know who to talk to about this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, really clear. Um, becomes a lot more of a challenge when you have all this stuff thrown at you automated to be like, I'm not going to do anything about this still. It's a lot easier to do that when you get the error email, when you're like, "Oh, man, this email, I get it every day.
Yeah,
Delete."
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's I forgot when the acquisition was when Salesforce acquired Tableau, but like I remember back then I was like, oh, why Salesforce we want Tableau, and now it's yeah, totally clear. It's you can basically integrate actions to data, and that's really cool. I think, Sean, yeah, for sure, we have to redefine what the future of AI analytics, our predictions and stuff.
It's really, I tried to, real quick, I want to shout out to make sure that any of our customers know Tableau Cloud is not going anywhere. We're continuing to invest in that. We got a bunch of AI stuff there that's great as well. Doesn't
Nice.
need to involve Salesforce. So there's I've heard a lot of concerns that we're like kind of getting sucked into the Salesforce machine, or it's not the case at all. We're still the Switzerland of data. There's still a whole ton of cool AI stuff that's real now and coming on Tableau Cloud. Just one disclaimer for folks. But your point about the pushing out the like what the future is going to be, it hasn't caught on at all. But I tried doing like the Nate Nichols law of AI or something, which is like AI advances more quickly than you expect, even when you expect AI to advance more quickly than you expect. And it's like, it's super true. It's like,
Yeah.
man, you look back, and I think yesterday or something was the 3-year anniversary of ChatGPT. And it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's reasoning and agents and image gen and video gen and audio gen and image understanding and video understanding and running for 8 hours to solve advanced math problems. None of that was in view when we were making limericks and funny rhymes 3 years ago and picking on it because
Seriously.
all the images had 18 fingers or whatever, and it's like, trying to figure out what it's going to be 3 years from now is tough. It's really,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, there's a lot of uncertainty, but it'll be impressive, whatever it is.
Yeah, maybe I know we're coming up on the hour here, but maybe I think that leads me kind of into a few of my last questions. Like, I want to talk a bit about like the people working with data, like kind of like in your kind of perspective. Like, I mean, I think we've already learned a lot just looking at that demo of like all these like kind of benefits to the workflow of the analysts and the teams they work with. Kind of on the flip side, where do you think human judgment's like still really important as AI enters into the workflow? Like when I'm thinking about like, okay, where should I kind of invest my skill set or my time? Um, where do you think that might be?
Yeah, I think a lot of it. So there's a few things there. I think for a long time, I've been asked kind of like versions of this question for a while now, and I've always a consistent answer of mine has been like soft skills and understanding the business. And like you mentioned you spend 6 months or 3 months on a deck for the director, and then they don't do anything with it, and it's like really hard. And the more you can understand like how people actually want to use the data and what decisions they want to make on that and what their concerns are, like the better served you'll be, and the more like I can imagine kind of analyst is obviously like a huge category with tons of different kind of skill sets and subdivisions and stuff, but I can imagine it bifurcating a little bit where there are some folks that are the kind of the data engineering, and all these folks will have AI enhancements with them. And there's a metaphor I like of like Iron Man suit, where it's like Tony Stark he's the hero, it's his experience and judgment and intuition and heart and all that stuff that's the story, but like the suit makes him a lot more effective. And I think
Hmm.
for a lot of data professionals, that'll be kind of a similar model where they're still in control, but now they can like shoot lasers and stuff. And hopefully a lot of the kind of repetitive work, or I'm going to go through and clean this stuff up or whatever, AI can take first passes of that for them. But I can see some people kind of migrating towards more of the data engineering and building out the semantic layer and enriching the semantic layer and
Right.
that kind of stuff. And then some others are migrating more towards like closer to the business side and really understanding the needs there, understanding like sitting on a sales leader's shoulder and seeing because lots of times the business leaders don't know where they can be helped with the analytics or where analytics could be useful. We all have bad habits now of like, I don't have time to find that dashboard, I got to go for it. And like, it doesn't have to be that way anymore. That changing those habits and getting them to think more about how data could be useful to them is it's like sort of is a muscle we need to build. And so I can also see analysts doing more of moving closer to the business side. And I don't know, I don't know if like, I don't know if overusing like the forward deployed engineer model that's emerging, but kind of like really like sitting with the business team. And it's like it's my job to get this business unit 100% engaged with analytics. Like one of our customers on Tap Next, they went from 10% engagement to 80% like adoption of the people that are using analytics on a weekly basis. And it's like, for me, that was such a like a heartening number. It's like, that's great. And like the idea that some analysts are focusing on that and solving the problems there and giving the agent really specialized coaching about what an acronym means on this particular team or what this team needs to see every Friday, or really kind of knowing that team and that business well, while others are more focused on the plumbing and the, making sure the data's in the right place at the right time and the things are defined correctly and models are being merged correctly and alerts are triggered when the data load fails and all that kind of stuff. I can see that kind of bifurcating a little bit as AI continues to advance. And the creation of dashboards becomes less important than enabling the agent to say the right things at the right time with the right recommendations attached to it.
Yeah, I
Nice.
completely agree. I mean, Hai and I are both big fans of like the embedded data science model,
Nice.
getting
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
much context as possible around like who you're working with. I think one of the biggest periods of like my development was I was on this team that was just churning through PMs. We had like 7 PMs in like 3 years, but there was a 6 month stint where we like didn't have a PM. And so like everyone else kind of had to step up and take on, everyone kind of had to like wear some of the PM role themselves. And I was like, oh, this like made me a much better data scientist because I learned a lot more around like, this is the decision that has to be made. And there's no one going to tell me this is the decision that's made. I have to like figure it out and then I'll go get the data. But like then it's like, wow, I know exactly what to get right now.
Yeah. It's kind of like we were talking earlier about me joining Tableau. It's like, oh, it's that same kind of thing. It's like all of a sudden I'm with the actual customers as they're trying to use the data and they need our tool to help there. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
you feel the pain. There's a lot more empathy building around it. It's a lot more, it takes it from this abstract, like there's a million cool things to do. And it's like, no, they're like 3 pain points that we really need to solve now. And that kind of context, I don't think there's a way around it besides spending a bunch of time with the folks.
Yeah. We're at the top of the hour. We've already taken way too much of your time. It's been really interesting. It was so cool seeing the demo. Asking before we go, anywhere that you recommend folks follow along, either to follow your work or to follow like what Tableau's doing?
Yeah, I think the Tableau blog and Tableau on LinkedIn is the best place to do that. We're publishing a lot in this space and, doing a lot of the more kind of, some of it's about the product specifically, but a lot of it's more like leadership and why the semantic layer is becoming more important and why we're embracing open standards for data and semantics and what agentic analytics means and all of that. Yeah, I would direct people to the Tableau blog, which you can find by Googling Tableau blog.
Everyone Google Tableau blog.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Nate. Thanks to our listeners and viewers for watching. If you enjoyed this episode with Nate, give us a like, drop a comment in if you have questions for us or him, and subscribe as well, of course. Thank you so much, Nate. Really, this is awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's so
Thank you,
cool.
Sean and Hi.
Thanks, Nate.
Appreciate it. Thanks all for listening.